Samhain and Halloween. Those are the topics today, and I'm going to start out with talking about harvest, the autumn harvest. It's this time of year in the northern hemisphere of the world that we celebrate the autumn harvest, and it's important to so many around the world, everyone around the world. In fact, it is about being close to the earth, to being touched by the earth, about being of the earth energy. And it's not just about the crops, but it is about the crops, bringing it in. It's about the bounty that we're bringing in, gathering the crops, the things that have been sown and produced during the year, and storing the seeds for next year, bringing those seeds in, and also time for reaping joy. So around the world, there are many celebrations this time of year. I'd like to read from 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 10. Now God, who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food, will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your virtue. And in reference to both the summer and fall harvest, you know, the summer harvest where we get the strawberries and the beautiful pea pods and all those things, and also the fall harvest. From Exodus chapter 23, verse 16. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year when you gather in your crops from the field. And it's also a personal year, isn't it? All year long we do what is just described as if we're a farmer for our inner lives and our outer lives. We take stock of ourselves throughout the year. We have our harvest times. We look at these things like, especially at times like Thanksgiving and New Year's. Some people spend New Year's Eve and New Year's Day doing these things. And also your birthday. And it's your birthday I'm going to talk about. So, in the mystics believe the 7 cycles to everyone's year. In fact, that each of the cycles, and they represent basically as if you were a farmer and you're doing your field, but this is the inner work we're doing and the energy that we use during the year. So the first day of the first cycle starts on your birthday, and there's 52 days in a cycle. And if I have any math heads in the room, Ken, and Barry, yes, the day before your birthday you have off. So that makes it, yes, there you go. So what do we do during our year? We prepare the soil, we plant our thought seeds, and we nurture them until it's time to harvest. So the first cycle is, and I'm just going to go through what these cycles are briefly. Do we have a slide on harvest? Just the first, there we go. I'm going to briefly go over them, and I'm going to give you some references that you can do more studying, because it's not the only topic we're on today. But the first cycle is especially important. It's like New Year's, really. It is your new year. And so you're planting your new thought seeds. You've thought a little bit and planned ahead on the things that you want to do for your year. And you have, you make perhaps your list. You might have a manifestation list. You might have some sort of vision board, that sort of thing. And you think about it as you were, this is your personal new year. So happy New Year, Barry, coming up. Now, the second cycle is good for quick manifestation, for like short-term goals. And the third one, I always call it the emotional cycle, no reason, but anyway. And they talk about how it's good for persistence and determination to get to move along those goals that you have. And then the fourth cycle, I really like that. When I was going through it, they talked about how it was a psychic cycle, but I'll call it the intuitive and creative cycle, so that this is especially good at that time. And the fifth, personal manifestation. So for the work you've done, the energy you focus is similar to the summer harvest. So you kind of see in the mid-year, just like in summer, your harvest, that it's your personal summer harvest. Then you're seeing some of your fruits and efforts come to fruition there. So also now the sixth cycle, which I'm getting ready to go into, is called the vacation cycle. I don't think that's going to work out as well for me. I might have to take some some afternoon naps or something. But anyway, it's good time for relaxation and short trips. And then the 7th cycle, which Barry is in and Ken is in. I don't know if anyone else is in this cycle right now, but basically it's the winter, the completion cycle. It's a very good time to let go of things, clean out the old, go through your closet, sweep out the porch, rake the leaves. It's also akin to the agitation cycle. So if you're feeling a little bit like that, and for some of you, what I'm talking about is the washing machine, the agitation in the washing machine. So you're kind of loosening things up and letting them go, so that when your new year starts, you've plowed the soil, you've gotten it ready, and you're ready for those new thought seeds. So this is your new year. So at this end of year, this is a perfect time for planning your garden, your new garden for next year. The things you want to do next year, the trips you want to do, the things you want to learn, and all these personal things. Perhaps there's something you want to get over, some sort of thing that you've been trying to learn, and this is the year for it, and so on like that. Now, this sounds all kind of weird, and I know. I have to say, when I first learned about it, I thought that was interesting. And I was talking to my girlfriend Betty in Tucson, and this was many years ago, and we were talking about it. And she said, it's interesting because as I look at it, and this was years ago, she says every time I move, it's always been in April and November, and her birthday was in April, and she said. Sometimes it's happened both April and November. so it's interesting how she looked at it. So if I'm asking you to take a moment and look at your lives and see, is there any kind of pattern that you've seen where some months or some times of the year are better for you to do certain things than other times? And the reason I bring that up is because the real purpose of this is to maximize the energy, to utilize the energy available to you. And so, for example, if I'm going to take a walk, I'm going to take and see, okay, is it going to rain in the morning or in the afternoon? Not so much right now, but over the summer, right? You want to maximize your time, maximize your energy. I'm going to feel better not walking in the highest heat of the day. I'm going to feel, some people perhaps, invigorated by getting out in the cold and doing a brisk walk in the mornings. And so just think about how you utilize your time and energy, and this is a very similar system, but I thought it was worth bringing up because it's all about our personal harvest and our personal New Year's and throughout the year. There's a, next slide please, there's a quote here I would like to read, and it's by the man who wrote the book on the left, Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life by H. Spencer Lewis. Anyone familiar with him? Okay. Well, he was the Rosicrucian, he actually started the Rosicrucian order for the world here in the United States in 1915, and he was their first leader, or they called it emperor or something like that, from 1915 to 1939. He wrote a lot of books. He was very prolific. And he wrote this about the book, in the book that I'm telling you about. The system set forth in this book for the attainment and application of self-mastership, or the mastership over conditions, is based upon the premise that man is essentially a creator of his environment and his circumstances, and not the result of them. So we create our world, and this is a good way to maximize the energy, an opportunity to use that energy throughout your own personal harvest cycle. And I'd like to say about the harvest, and we did mention how it's all around the world, all these harvest celebrations also. We have farmers all around the world, but there's also celebrations. Every culture has their own. And like the next slide for me, please. You'll see here on the upper left, you'll see the Haitian and American voodoo. Then you'll see the Slavic Jade. And then the Mexican Dia de los Muertos. And then the Asian Autumn Festival, which is actually celebrated in September because it's also very closely tied to the full moon at that time. So that's when they do their festival. And then the Christian All Saints and All Souls there in the bottom center. And then on the far left you see the Celtic Gaelic Samhain. And in that picture, I wish you could see it really close. There's a lot of things going on in there, including some children over there on the far left, far right, bottom, where they're bobbing for apples. And they used to call that snap apple. It was a snap apple game, which I was going to mention later. So I think it must be odd for you to hear me bring up the voodoo. And I want to sort of say, if the only thing you know about voodoo is that it is what you've learned in movies and cartoons, then I have some information for you. And briefly, its roots are in Benin, western coastal Africa, and it was actually created by enslaved Africans and their descendants who came in contact with Roman Catholic missionaries in the 15 and 1600s. And the followers believe in this: the existence of one supreme God attended by various spirits, think angels, archangels, who later became synonymous with certain Catholic saints. So if you were in New Orleans, for example, and you see that's Marie Laveau pictured there in the painting, she was a major figure, and her daughter as well in this religion. And basically, if you see a picture of Saint Michael, also to some Archangel Michael, and to others, and they have the same exact Michael in there, so, and the same exact pictures. So you'll see that very similar. And they also believe in invoking the wisdom and protection of their ancestors, very similar to others. And this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. This religion's fundamental principle is that everything is spirit. Humans are spirit who inhabit the visible world, and other spirits populate the unseen world. Now, this might remind you of some talks that we've had earlier in the year, and we brought up the Hermes Trismegistus. And as above, so below. Remember that? So the spirits, they're saying the humans, the spirit in the visible world, and the spirits in the invisible world. And so this ties in with what I'm going to be talking about today a little bit more. Now, the world celebrates this beginning in the autumnal equinox in September, but when the days and the nights are the same length. So then slowly the days get shorter and the nights get longer. And it's time for the crops, of course, to be harvested, both literally and figuratively, and we acknowledge our plans that have come to fruition. This is our personal and collective. Now, I'd like to show you the next slide, and I'm slacking off on the Ken's pointer here. Now, it's actually spelled Samhain, you see that? But it's actually pronounced Samhain, that's how you say it. I did hear a French person on YouTube call it Samhain, which seemed to make better sense, but anyway, it's Samhain, and so just so you look like you know what you're talking about, that's how you say it, okay? And it's Celtic and Gaelic. The word is Gaelic, but the holiday is both Gaelic and Celtic. And what happened was, when the Roman Catholics came and they invaded these countries, they wanted to convert the pagans, and to do that they converted their holidays. Some of the ways they did that. And what happened was they said, well, we're going to have All Saints and All Souls Day be this time of the years, and then everyone will do this. But it didn't work. Someone's endured. So eventually, All Saints and All Souls became their own distinctive days. And the Halloween portion that you hear about so much became a repository of all the other sort of considered pagan practices. And then Samhain, which is the most important of the pagan four fire festivals, is a tribute in a time to honor the fertile earth and the fertile year. You see, Samhain is also tied to the harvest. And again, I said the nights are growing longer, and they celebrate with feasts and bonfires. The winter is coming, and do you remember in Easter I talked about Ostara, the goddess who came up above the ground for spring, to bring spring upon the earth? Well, at this time of the year, the goddess goes down into the earth, according to their religion, and so that they prepare for winter to bring winter. Okay, so and it's also a big time, very important to them, for honoring our ancestors, and we'll talk about more of that later. And many of you probably heard this, that this is the time of the year where the veil is the thinnest. And so there's this thinning of the veil, and you're probably going, some of you, what is the veil? So I want to just read this. It's from blogger Tess Whitehurst. She describes the veil as this: the place where the everyday illusion of separation brushes up against the divine truth of eternity and universal. The place where form meets spirit, seen meets unseen, known meets unknown. You could also think of it as part of the continuum of all that is, part of the continuum of this earthly liveliness and beyond. Like the mythology's river Styx, you're familiar with the river Styx, and also, as described by the mystics, the threshold or the gate. Ms. Whitehurst writes, when we meditate or when we have a mystical experience of any variety, this curtain parts, and we're able to gaze into the place of power, the place between the worlds. And I'd like to remind you, and we always do remember this, God is everywhere present, the power of love at work in the universe. Now, also, what I'd like to remind, and there are many artists in the room, musicians, people who do all kinds of things where they get into the zone. Am I right? You're so focused and so filled with the passion for what you're doing, you're in the zone. And so that to me is passing through the veil. You're in the flow of this energy at that time. It's not the zone. Everyone talks about the zone, and athletes talk about the zone, and it's not a place you can point to, is it? Well, but it's still there. We know it's there because we've felt it. We've been in it. So traditionally, though, I'll say it's described as an energetic barrier, not something that, like a wall, concrete wall or something. It's non-physical. It's also been described as a membrane, mostly by the early spiritualists. And between this physical world and the non-physical or spirit world, the Celtic mythology called it barriers of mist, which I think is really cool. It kind of brings up Merlin and all those stories. Now, it's said to be the thinnest at Samhain and Halloween, but why? And this is the suggestion. It is the season of transition. This is the season of transition here, right now. We're between summer and winter. The harvest is waning. Our natural world temporarily pulls away from the growth of new plant life and moves to leafless, barren hibernation, the literal and metaphorical death. And what do we call it? I know there's somebody out here who's going to know it. What do we call it when we prune the flowers at the end of the season? Deadhead. We deadhead. We take those dead rose heads off, right? And Ms. Whitehurst says, we love fall. This is why we love fall. Because we're in this in-between place, and the energy is so interesting. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? There's actually blog sites and websites out there who are giving you all sorts of tips right now on how to deal with feeling all this energy right now. Now, it's suggested around this time that the division of meaning and practice of different cultures is also growing thin, because we're all recognizing each other's cultures and beliefs. Our physical, we want to embrace the unique energy of the season, both with our physical and our good self-care. So Rose and I were talking this earlier. This time of year, the weather's shifting. People sometimes get allergies, and we put our humidifiers on. We're not quite ready for the heater, maybe. So we take good care of ourselves. Maybe you're a little tired, take a nap. And if you want more information, just Google it, because there are lots and lots of tips out there on how to deal with this energy right now. Honor our spiritual side with a more quiet time, prayer, meditation, and solitude. Does anybody remember what that's like? That means without the TV on, yeah. So Samhain, the Gaelic word and the Gaelic and Celtic holiday, thought to be the Celtic New Year. Historically, it means it's all about light, fire, food, prayers, offerings, and ancestry, our ancestors. The Celts let the home fires go out. This is what they do during this festival. The home fires go out, and then the ladies, Irish women, made candles, and this is what they did. They used the candles in the hearth instead of the fire of the hearth, and they prayed over the candles that they made for their neighbors. And then they prayed for their neighbors over the candles that they'd given by them. Isn't that awesome? So they celebrated the sacred community bonfire with prayers and songs and offerings, and let's see if we have another. There we go. There's a bonfire, and they're singing and dancing, and they're bringing food, and they're bringing offerings, and it's quite the thing. And from this bonfire, the sacred bonfire, the hearths are relit from a branch that they light on fire, and they take them all home. Everyone takes theirs home, and they light their hearths back up. And then some of the farmers take and light torches here, and then they take and put the torches at the edges of the fields so that those are protected for the next year. They also take and put candles and jack-o'-lanterns along the path, like the walkway up to the front door, because this is for ancestors who are wandering home across the Vale, and they want to make sure they can get home and to the front door okay. And they also left food at the edge of the village for those ancestors who were looking to find their way home. It was also thought that unfriendly fairies might follow or cross the Vale, since it was open like that, and follow them across the Vale. So that some of the Celts dressed up in like animal skins and as fearsome creatures in some other way to protect themselves from these unfriendly fairies. And they also had these special meals to honor the ancestors that passed on their loved ones. And it was a silent reverence, or it wasn't, or it was a meal where they especially went over the entire year, happened over the entire year, so the ancestors could hear all the things that had happened that year. And that's pretty cool. I would like to say that there's a similar custom that evolved in Kentucky. So that's interesting. I thought that was very interesting. So we may recognize that some of the Samhain ways I've talked about are also Halloween traditions. Now, I'd like to say it's easiest to think of Halloween as half of the whole celebration, which evolved from Samhain. Okay, so Samhain, think of this Samhain as being the more reverent half, and Halloween being the more silly, fun-loving prankster part. And on that note, I'd like to tell you about how the jack-o'-lantern came to be. So it was actually a carved turnip on a string, and inside was a burning, glowing coal. And so they carried it around like that, and so that you could see the carving of the turnip. And the name Jack came from a Christian legend from Jack the blacksmith, and he was known to roam the roads Halloween night with nothing but a turnip lamp to light his way, and that's how we got the term Jack-o'-lantern. So the Celtic customs eventually changed, and rituals and costumes as well. So they weren't no longer necessarily dressing to protect themselves from unfriendly fairies and monsters, but to protect themselves from witches and witchcraft and other superstitions. And Welshmen dressed as women and sang songs to honor the White Lady, who was a ghost or spirit who sat in a tree surrounded by pigs and apples. So the White Lady, if you're a reader of British mysteries or British fiction or any kind of British, you'll see the term White Lady come up many times, and that's who she is. So we also went from that to trick-or-treating, and I'd like to ask you to enjoy they went the kids used to go around and they would go to their neighbors and they would sing songs and they would say prayers for their neighbors' ancestors in exchange for soul cakes. And you have the recipe on one side of your handout. On the other side of your handout is the song from Sting called Soul Cake. And so feel free to make the recipe and enjoy it as that would have been your treat instead of the trick-or-treatings that we have today. This I thought was an interesting side note. French children collected flowers from their neighbors on Halloween night, the night that the rest of them were singing. They collected flowers, and then the next day, which was All Saints' Day, they would take the flowers into the graves of their ancestors, which I thought was very cool. So wouldn't that surprise kids if you start handing them flowers at Halloween? Now, so in the United States, what happened, the Irish immigrants brought Halloween and Samhain with them, the practices and traditions, to the New World at the time. They brought the parties, the games like Snap Apple we talked about earlier, now we call it bobbing for apples, masquerade parades, which some cities still do, trick or treat, the holiday events that were used, like the parties and things, they were used as a means of courtship. So they would, make sure that, I'm sure there was some matchmaking going on there and who's going to whose party then. The pumpkins were more common than turnips, so that's how we got our pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns. And here in the United States, we had more pumpkins. So Halloween evolved from courtship parties and children's games to these things, and I'm just going to give you a brief history. In the 1950s, the trick-or-treating was meant for distracting troublemakers. And in the 70s, it became more commercial. There was a Christian backlash because of, I guess someone figured out that it had pagan origins. And then in the 80s, those pagans in the United States started becoming more active. But they did this in an increase in spiritual and solemn celebration on Halloween, or the closest full moon. Now the holiday is a conglomeration of many for some of us. And in rural America, you'll often find something called Beggar's Night. And it happens on the 30th of October, and it's where the kids go around for trick-or-treating on Beggar's Night. And it came from a concern over the security of the children being out there trick-or-treating on their own. So that's how that became. And also, we have harvest celebrations and Halloween celebrations all around the place, all around the country. In churches, for example, in community centers. I just wanted to point out that Peace Lutheran is having their great pumpkin candy drop. So they hoist it up to the top of a pole, and it drops all this candy. The kids go running for it. And also there will be county corn mazes all around the country. We have county corn mazes. Even the one is nearby here somewhere, and it's called a corn maze. It's actually pallets. I guess they're decorated in some way. But at any rate, it's a maze, and it's for the children, or children at heart. Town centers do this. We have Las Cruces, the spooky downtown. Las Cruces Spooky Downtown is called, and it's for children. We have a zombie walk. We have a Halloween festival. We have all kinds of things going on, including haunted, a little more toward the spirit end of things and less on the fun and party time, is the haunted history tour with the historic Doña Ana Courthouse and Jail, if you're all interested in that. Union has a haunted maze. There are paranormal investigation things going on, all sorts of things. And it all comes from Samhain, the harvest, Samhain, and into Halloween. And so as you can see, all of these things, they includes of an abundance of spirituality, celebration, and merry-making fun. We're all reaping the year's bounty in its forms, no matter how you decide to celebrate. We're celebrating our ancestors and departed loved ones. It's not just a cartoon ghost we're talking about here, is it? and we're joining in the uplifting fun of the holiday. So it doesn't all have to be all serious and solemn. It can be also very joyful and bring joy in your life, because that's part of the celebration. That's why the festivals are going around the world, like the Apple Fest and the Cherry Fest and all these festivals, because people are saying, hey, look, everything's great, we're doing okay. So just take a moment for yourself and ask yourself, what rituals would you like to create or recreate for your autumn holiday season? Some of the things that I've given you ideas of, not necessarily dressing up to scare the white lady out of the tree, but some of the wonderful things that we can do. Maybe set a place at your table for a departed loved one. So I ask you to please find some time to honor your personal harvest and those who came before you. And just a reminder that next week, and you can have the last slide. There we go. Next week, Reverend Pat Conway is doing a talk on Dia de los Muertos, and we're going to have a table set up for you to bring a picture of your loved one, your ancestors, whatever, to bring a picture, and we're going to put it on the table here if you'd like to, and share your loved one with us, and we can all honor each other's ancestors. And also, if you're interested, some are, to either dress in costume or into theme, because in the theme of the autumn or the theme of the Dia de los Muertos, and support Pat and her talk. Our music is going to be provided by Randy Granger, because somebody's birthday is happening next week. Thank you so much, everyone, and meditation. Okay, thank you, Barry. You can always tell me. All right, so let's wiggle into our seats a little bit. Let's get comfy. And we're going to do a harvest meditation. Let us begin by inviting the Divine Presence to surround us with loving and infinite protection, wisdom, and compassion. Breathe in. Breathe out. Allow the healing light energy to move through you and around you. Relax and receive. Picture and feel this light now encircle your feet and gradually enfold you. Expand the light now to fill the room and all those within. Imagine this healing, loving peace encompassing your loved ones, your region, and the entire world. And relax. View our planet now as if from space and witness the healing light grow, pulse, and do its work. Now slowly bring your focus back to your body and remain relaxed. The primary purpose of this meditation is to give thanks. First, for the bountiful harvests in our lives, individually and collectively. Then for the lessons, even those we may not have consciously chosen. Please take a moment to consider and appreciate your personal bountiful harvests. Now allow the gratitude to fill you until all you feel is love. Sense it with every cell of your being and extend it deep within you and out in every direction, both geographically in space as well as in time, to your past, present, and future, your every place, everywhere, anytime self. Bathed in gratitude and love, send it to yourself no matter where and when you are, and surround that self too. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what you did, just send the love. It's okay. You're okay. And know your every wind self has received the message. Now bring your attention to your breath. Take this moment to release anything in your consciousness which no longer serves you. As we accept and celebrate the harvests of our year, we clear away our fields, plow them under, and prepare the soil for new seeds to take hold. Immediately plant your thought seeds in your fertile imagination. May they grow strong and abundant now and in seasons yet to come. We extend the love and protection we have experienced here forward along our paths to accomplish better in every way the tasks ahead. We extend this beyond us and forward so that as we walk along our paths and we touch each and every one, this love and healing and light is extended and felt. We're grateful for our blessings. We are grateful. Thank you. Amen. So it is.